Oh, it's time to talk some NFL betting blitz presented by Parlay Play. We had 2 games last night, 2 games today to discuss in the NFL. I'm Gino Bacola here along with Eric. Eric, I'm going to pull us up a full screen. We're going to talk DRF Sportsbook betting lines. We're going to dish out some plays for Parlay Play a little bit later on. Let's go back in time a little before we jump into today. Let's discuss what happened yesterday. First game, we saw kind of a tight first half for the Ravens, tied at halftime. Big swing play there where it looks like they're driving, and then all of a sudden they don't score. We get the punt return back from the Texans, and then second half they sort of settled in a little bit. And Baltimore's defense yesterday was incredibly impressive. That's really what I took out of that game. They were flying all over the place. They made life really, really difficult for CJ Stroud and the Texans.
Yeah, interesting first half. I thought the big difference was the coaching staff of the Ravens, their halftime adjustments, and the lack of halftime adjustments from the Texans.
Yeah, because in the first half, it's not as if the Texans were having a ton of success. They got a couple big swing plays to go their way to keep them in that game. So you should have felt, we're lucky to be in it now. Now let's make some adjustments. But you're right. It almost felt like, oh, hey, we're tied, so we don't have to make any adjustments.
I have no idea why they didn't have a spy on Lamar. How can you not have a spy on Lamar Jackson? And their DEs routinely did not contain the edge, and Lamar was able to take advantage of that. I mean, that one play by Greenland on the 4th down play when he completely bit on the RPO was just, I mean, it was a high school level play. Call a spade a spade. I mean, that was an awful play by him, like to completely leave up the edge. And then offensively, look, I get it. The offensive line wasn't protecting, but you at least have to take some shot downfield.
Yep.
And there was just no shots downfield. Granted, there was some costly drops, but really just didn't like what I saw from offense. They really couldn't run the ball. Dameon Pierce, unfortunately, it looks like he's been a bust. He's doing nothing right now.
Yeah.
Singletary is a free agent. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that team if they do lose Bobby Slowick, because a defensive coach, when you have a young offense, that can be really troublesome. Ravens, Lamar did Lamar, man. He was able to extend plays, made some key throws. I loved how the announcers are trying to make Dalvin Cook a thing. Dalvin Cook is nothing to that offense. They're getting Andrews back. Going to be an awesome AFC championship game, whoever it is, the Ravens against the Chiefs or Ravens against the Bills.
So, yeah, Baltimore had a little bit too much late, and I think that was a big game for Lamar, just sort of getting a little of that bad playoff history off his back, too. In some of those games where they've struggled, they haven't scored, and he's struggled. So I think that was a nice game for him, second half, to kind of get some of that off. I think he'll be a lot more comfortable going into next week, too.
Yeah, I mean, once you get that monkey off your back, I mean, to get through it is huge.
Yep, especially because he played poorly in the first half. He really did. He was struggling at halftime. They weren't moving the ball very well. Their offense was not clicking. But as you pointed out, they made some major adjustments. As we move to the second game, this was probably one of the most frustrating games. As a bettor, I still won. But just watching this game, I was probably more frustrated in this game losing than in any game that wasn't like a Laker game or a Dodger game, or I'm really, really a team I'm a fan of. I just watched that game over and over. And as someone the last couple of years who's picked on the 49ers, that was exactly what I was looking for. That exact game right there. It's exactly the type of game where like they're a little bit overvalued always because they're kind of a bully team. They beat up on teams that they're better on. They crush them. But when they have a little bit of adversity, they struggled. And we were seeing that again last night. I'm not someone who goes back and forth on Brock Purdy. Like, Brock Purdy is better than what most people want to give him credit for, but he's not an MVP, and he was never at a top 5 quarterback level. He played like that for this team throughout a lot of this year, but in these big games, big moments, he's not a guy who's going to win you games. And honestly, the difference in the game yesterday, there was a lot of things that could have gone better for the Packers. But the one difference, Jordan Love had 3 or 4 really bad throws. 2 of them were interceptions. 2 of them ended up completely costing them what would have been first downs because he overthrew Aaron Jones or a short pass. And all of them ended up impacting the Packers. None of Brock Purdy's bad throws hurt the 49ers at all. The Packers dropped 2 interceptions. One of them would have been a pick 6. And the other bad throws just ended up being incompletions. They didn't crush the 49ers like the Jordan Love mistakes did for the Packers. You miss a 41-yard field goal. That's partly the Packers' fault because they came into this game with a kicker who had missed 5 games in a row, and your coach is having a quote saying, "I pray when the guy goes out there on the field." You can't go out there with that guy, Eric, if that's how you feel, right?
No. You have to know that he missed 2 costly field goals, and I thought he got way too complacent at the end, playing not to lose instead of playing to win. And I knew as soon as they tried it out there, they're going to miss that field goal. Just absolutely
you could sense it. You could feel it, and you could feel the way it was shaping up that they were going to be down 4 still. The 49ers would get the ball, and it would give them the chance because at that point of the game, I will give him credit. Brock Purdy led a game-winning drive. And for a lot of quarterbacks, after having a bad game, you can't do that. Mentally, you're not there and you're not able to get there. And that's one of his biggest skills. But on the flip side, he shouldn't even have been in a position to lead a game-winning drive. The game should have been over at that point already based on how Green Bay was playing earlier. The missed spot also on 4th down. That was a first down. They gave him a bad spot.
There's a couple missed spots.
That flipped it. We cover the game. If you played Green Bay plus the 10 or 9 or 9.5, but if you had some of that money line or if you had any sort of Green Bay futures moving forward, that one stings because that was the template for the game to where, and you called it, man, you sniffed it. One of these guys gets banged up, right? And then boom, it changes everything. And that's exactly what happened. Debo gets banged up. You could see everything changed. Purdy was not sharp. And then they didn't stop the run all that well. And then all of a sudden, you got a balanced offense on the other side. It was all those little things, the ways you could beat this team. And I come out of that game going, if I'm just looking at this game, I probably wouldn't feel all that confident about San Francisco moving forward because that wasn't the best game they played. But on the total flip side, I actually feel the opposite, Eric. I feel like that was the game they were supposed to lose. They survived, and I feel like you're going to get a better version of them in the next couple games, especially if Debo's healthy. That feels like one of those, damn, that team survived. They got another lease on life, and I wouldn't be shocked to see them end up in the Super Bowl. And now all they are is a home win as about a 7-point favorite away from a neutral game to win the Super Bowl, Yeah,
and it's going to be interesting to see what's going on with Debo. McCaffrey constantly working on his leg on the sideline. I don't think that's getting enough attention. The thing that stood out to me is to me, the matchup on the Packers side where the Packers had the best statistical advantage was Jordan Reed in the slot. When you look at what the slot DB, what they do for the 49ers, and he had 4 receptions, 4 targets. 2 of those receptions and targets were on jet sweeps. That makes absolutely 0 sense to me. 49ers, Fred Warner is absolutely elite against the tight ends, and your tight ends combined had 10 targets for 23 yards, 4 receptions. Why are you constantly targeting the tight end when you're going against the defense, which thrives against the tight end? Defense struggles against the slot. Your slot wide receiver has 2 receptions, 2 passes that went over the line of scrimmage. That's just bad game planning to me. That's not giving your team the best chance to win. I loved how they started getting Aaron Jones involved, and he ran. You could run on this 49ers team. That is a weakness in them. So look, to me, this is all on the floor. I'll call a spade a spade. To me, this is all on the floor. Where's game plan? Playing not to lose.
He got tight. He just got tight. Early in the game, they weren't playing that way. And I like the fact anyone that said, oh, they should have taken the points on that fourth down, you're wrong. They got to go for that, and they got it. And it was a bad spot. You go for it every time, because remember a few years ago against Brady when they kicked the field goal instead, and then Brady goes down and wins. You go for it. I like that. And then both coaches, because coming out of this game, as I said, you can really look at this from completely opposite sides of the spectrum for San Francisco, that they didn't play very well overall as a team in that game. Like, they should have lost. And one of the things that has been a constant in the games they struggle, Matt LaFleur gets wonky, man, with the play calling and the stuff. We've talked about this over and over. It reminds me a little bit of Sean McVay at the end of the first half yesterday. He did not get aggressive. He gets too worried about the time that he's going to leave for the other team. At the end of the first half, he was so worried about it that he didn't even get closer, and they don't get any points out of it. And then at the end of the game, they scored too quickly. They gave Jordan Love a full minute, and Jordan Love, again, he was so good for
that was a young
last 10 weeks. And that's no, not at all. And you don't, if that's on fourth down, obviously no problem. But on first down with a lot of time left in the 2 timeouts you have, you just don't need to make that throw. So I think there were a couple different things that Shanahan and Purdy got away with. Right. And that's kind of why I like looking at Pro Football Focus, because I saw some people last night saying, well, Jordan Love had a couple interceptions and Purdy didn't. If you watch the game, Purdy had at least what would have been 2 that were completely dropped. So if you play that same level again 2 more times, you're not going to win. But did you get away with it now? And are you going to come back and be sharper and better and make adjustments? If that's the case, then that team snuck one out. And you see this a lot of times with teams that end up winning it all. There was one spot along the way that they should have lost, and they don't. And then they get that second chance. And that may be the case here. Maybe the game we're going to talk about right now will have one of these 2 teams feeling pretty good, because I'd imagine right now you're the Lions or the Bucks. You got a game to worry about, right? You're not looking at the 49ers going, oh. But if everybody's watching that game yesterday thinking, this team doesn't look as unbeatable as they did throughout a lot of the year, especially if they don't have Debo, especially if you have a team that can run the ball a little bit. And, for the Lions, you can. And the Lions are favored in this game today. They're hosting against the Bucks. And man, Eric, if I would have told you at the beginning of the year, you are going to be hosting a game as a 6.5-point favorite to go to the conference championship, you would have said, sign me up for that right now.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of this game, I look at it like this. Both these back fours are absolutely brutal, which kind of leans me a little bit to the over. But I think in-game, you're going to be able to get a better.
I have to do this. This wasn't even an answer to what you just said, but this fits.
Yeah.
Flipping brutal. Yeah. It was talking about something else earlier, but when you said brutal, I had to bring brutal up because it was almost perfect for it.
Bucks, one of the worst rushing attacks. So obviously, if they're doing all these quick 3 and outs and Detroit's able to go up the field with their rushing attack, that's going to put a lot of pressure on that defense. And I don't know if they're going to be able to stay on the field. So to me, I really think the key is the Bucks are going to have to run the ball. What Vita Vea are we going to see? He was a freaking man-child in that game against the Eagles. Are we going to see Vita Vea from a couple years ago when he was a stud up the middle to limit Gibbs and Montgomery? Goff does struggle with pressure. We saw that in the second half against the Rams. Rams blitzed 72% of the time in that second half, and Goff only led him to a couple field goals. The offense really stalled out. And we all know Todd Bowles likes to blitz. So if they're blitzing, that's going to be how good does Goff handle it. Eagles really didn't bring much pressure. The O-line of the Bucks did a pretty good job keeping him up. He only had 3 sacks. They only allowed 3 sacks. But Mayfield is a little banged up. If he's not able to move around in pocket, extend some plays, that's also going to limit this. In terms of sides, look, I'm not doing anything. I know home divisional favorites are 42% against the number going into yesterday. So the trend definitely says to take the Bucks here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 player props. The first player prop I'm going to do is Mike Evans. I have 3 player props, Mike Evans over 64.5 yards receiving. Lions give up the 3rd most yards to wide receivers a game during the regular season, allowing 181.2. Lions are 16th DVOA defending wide receivers, 23rd defending wide receivers run, plus our 29th DVOA defending the deep pass. The last 4 wide receivers that have played the Lions: Puka 9 for 81, Jefferson 12 for 192, Lamb for 12 for 227, Jefferson 6 for 141. Evans has gone over this total 10 games, leads the Bucks in target share, 24% target share, averaging 70 yards per game. I feel we're getting a little discount on his prop just because of his poor performance against the Eagles. Next one I'm going to the tight end, Sam Laporta. Bucks allow the 3rd most yards per game to opposing tight ends, 63.4 yards per game, allowing 10.6 yards per reception. Last game, I know he only had 36 yards, but he did have 11 targets, so he was a vital part of this passing game. Laporta is 2nd in the Lions in targets, 20% target share, plus the Lions funnel everything to the middle. That's why Laporta and such a big part of it. I feel this number is a little discounted because of the injury and his performance last game. So I'm going to take Laporta over the 40.5. Last one. I played Jameson Williams at plus 310 to score a touchdown. Last game against the Bucks, 53 yards, 1 touchdown. Bucks are poor defending the deep pass, as just like the Lions are. So I think this is going to open up for some deep shot to Williamson. I feel everyone's looking at St. Brown. So I feel this is going to be a Jameson Williams type game. So I played him to score a touchdown at plus 310.
Yeah, just a couple things to mention too. Tampa was 8-1 ATS away from their home stadium this year. They were a good team on the road. I think this is a good spot, a good time, everything for the Lions. You got that big one out of the way last week, that real emotional game. Now you can come here, you get another home game against, honestly, an opponent that on paper just isn't quite as tough as the one you faced last week. This is actually a game that I feel like you can force Tampa to be more one-dimensional because they're not good running the ball. And that's where you guys are actually pretty good defensively. Detroit's good against the run. So if you turn them into a team that has to throw the ball, then you can put some pressure on them with Hutchinson. And that's actually one of the plays I'm leaning on, Eric, on parlay play. What I played today for this game, I went Mike Evans over 74.5 receiving yards. As you were pointing out, I think he's going to have a great game because he is someone who will be able to attack those mismatches with the corners and the players in the secondary that grade really poorly, undersized as well. So give me Evans there. My other one was I went Hutchinson over 4 tackles. This is solo and assisted. So 4 combo tackles here. He's had 6, 5, and 6 in the last few. He had 5 tackles for loss a couple of weeks ago. He's had multiple sacks now in 4 straight, I believe. And I think that's the key, right? If they're in a situation here where Tampa's down and needing to throw the ball, that's when he's going to have some opportunities to really tee off and get a couple more of them. So my 2 plays for this game, I don't have anything on the side. I'm going to be flying the Lions flag with you, buddy. I am all in on these Lions with you all the way through. I hope you win this one. I hope you win the whole damn thing. So let's go Lions. Let's get the Mike Evans prop home. I got the Hutchinson prop too, and we'll remind you about those on parlay play in just a minute. Man, again, because in case it's the last time we talk about either one of these teams, fantastic job by Bowles and by Baker Mayfield this year with Tampa. This team was supposed to be bad, Eric. They were supposed to be the 2nd worst team in the league. And Baker had a great year. He made himself a ton of money this year. This year, he was only paid $4 million. Jared Stidham made more money to be the backup for Denver than Baker Mayfield made to be the starting quarterback for Tampa. And he's come in there, and now next year, he's probably going to make himself $30 million, in that range as a starting quarterback for someone. So, I mean, I had actually even heard rumors that a team like the Falcons would look for Baker Mayfield, because think about the level that they were at this year. If they just got average level quarterback play, if that team this year had this version of Baker Mayfield inserted there, they're a playoff team. Absolutely. How many of those games did Atlanta lose that we saw early in the year because of a bad Ritter play or two, and then they bring Heineke in? So amazing job from Baker this year, who has had some real struggles throughout his career, but I've always been a fan, and you and I have always joked about him. It was good to see him play well, and he made you some money this year. A lot of times that you were on this side, and you even pointed out you thought they would be better than the common perception. So these two teams have to feel fantastic about the season they had being here. For the Lions, first time playing multiple playoff games since 1957. Since 1957. So Goff was great last week. That was a huge game for him with all the pressure in the world. And now, over the last 3 years, Dan Campbell and this team has been built well. You get worried now because what happens with some of these good teams, Eric? Does Ben Johnson leave at the end of this year? Right? Does he go somewhere else?
The worry is this. You become the Eagles.
Exactly. You lose both your coordinators.
Yeah, that's the worry.
And so, and one thing we see in sports, you never know when you're going to get back. You always feel like, oh, we had a good year. If you're the Texans, gosh, Stroud, he's young. We're going to be back there every single year. You don't know. That's what the Bengals thought, right? And then look what happens. Somebody gets hurt, things change, it moves real quickly. Yeah. And you got to try to capitalize when you have an opportunity. And right now, the Lions have a legitimate opportunity to win this game and then to go and play San Francisco on the road and actually feel like they have a chance to make some noise in that game. So, Lions, 6. This one just dipped down even. It went from 6.5 down to 6 now. Point favorite in the first of 2 games today. Before we get to the next game, I wanted to get to a few of the other comments that came in earlier from when we were talking about the other games from yesterday. Texans had a lot of pre-snap flags that cost them along with little defensive adjustments. Yeah, I will give them a little more leeway, Eric. I think I'm not as hard on them as I am on the LaFleur and the Packers, because it was the first time in a spot like that for those coaches and that staff, right? For Ryans and Slowick, the first time in that situation in the playoffs, having to make adjustments like that. So I'll give them a little bit of a mulligan.
Ryan was the defensive coordinator for the 49ers.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
he's better than that. He should have known, hey, I need to be having Harrison, who runs a 4.440, just spy Lamar. I can't have him doing these wild blitzes. I need to tell my DEs, don't bite on fates. Detain. Greenlaw. There was 6 plays. Like 2 of them were in a row where he just made basic high school mistakes because he didn't contain. Ryan has been there. He's been in the NFC championships. He's called defenses. He should have been able to make adjustments, and he made none. So I know everyone's giving his flowers, but his defensive adjustments were brutal yesterday.
I think the better way of me presenting it is, of the 2 games yesterday, I'm harder on LaFleur because he's been there before, I think. And we've seen it from him multiple times, sort of the same, getting cute, not getting aggressive down the stretch, stagnant, like you said, things that didn't make sense, throwing to the tight end, like little stuff like that for a guy who has been there against these same opponents, and we've seen it, and it's that same thing. Maybe for Ryans now, as a guy who was a head coach for the first time, maybe he was focused a little bit too much on this, and he has to learn, okay, hey, defense in these big games, maybe there are some learning, there are some growing pains there. That I'll give him a little more of the benefit of the doubt. I'm not disagreeing with you on the specifics. Whereas for LaFleur, it's just, gosh, you've been here now a few times in these same situations. I think I expected a little bit more of him. That's sort of what Let's Make Some Money was saying too. Played instead of not to lose. And Ravens look amazing. So just wanted to answer a few more.
Solid. But I mean, with that being said, we need to realize that we all are habits of what we just saw last.
Yep.
So if this game in Buffalo, it's just an ugly game and Team X wins, whatever team.
We're gonna all think that Baltimore looked so much better, and that's not going to be the game that's played next week.
And we could get a little value on the other team. So we need
that's what I'm hoping for.
So it's just something you just need to keep your head up, keep grinding, and like kind of understand that you can still get value. I know a lot of people I saw in X or Twitter, whatever I was going to talk about, we're talking about public favorites and everything. In my eyes, it's the playoffs. There's limited games. There's always going to be one team that's the public.
Absolutely.
Don't let that stuff screw you. This is completely different.
We saw it yesterday with Green Bay. Same thing, right? Like they were the public buzzy team and they covered. It's as with less games, with more limited games, your approach as a gambler has to change right now. It just does come playoff time. So for the Lions to win, that would be the best matchup for football, right? The two better teams in the NFC squaring off, and you'd get this 49ers team that's been more established over the last few years versus this Lions team that's a new team that hasn't been in a situation like this for a while. For Tampa, it would just be amazing. Like it would be, wow, how the hell are they back in the conference championship? Where you get rid of Brady, you didn't think you were going to be here. You duct tape your team together with a $4 million quarterback and he shows up. For the AFC, honestly, either of the matchups feel like they would be really intriguing. And it doesn't seem like it'd be a situation where people will say the networks are rooting for this team. I don't think they care, because if you got Baltimore, Kansas City, that would be great. If you got Baltimore, Buffalo, that would also be great. And this game tonight, Kansas City, Buffalo, all the storylines here with these two teams and the rivalry they've had over the last 5 years or so, where we've seen some epic playoff games. The rules were changed because of these two teams matching up in the playoffs a few years ago. And now we're going to be in a situation where, honestly, neither one of these teams is the best version of the teams that we've seen in the last few years, right? The Bills have had better Bills teams where their defense was maybe not quite as banged up. And the Chiefs have had better Chiefs teams where their offense was much better. But you still got Allen, you still got Mahomes, and you've got these teams now who are one game away from a conference championship. And this one will be a blast. Should be bad weather again. One of my main handicaps for this game, Eric, is I just feel like this is one of those, it is like the line in The Waterboy when they're in the bowl game and the announcers keep saying, last game of the year, Dan, can't hold anything back. That's sort of what I feel like here. I think this is the moment where we're going to get Allen rushing, where we're going to get Mahomes rushing, where we're going to get these guys making plays and trying to make plays and not worrying about getting banged up or the hits they take up the middle, because tomorrow and next week don't matter. You got to win today. This is going to be a fascinating game, man. I'm really excited for this one. This should be, I hope it's competitive, because the last few weeks we haven't had as many really competitive games. We had yesterday, the second one was. This one on paper all weekend long felt like the one that was just going to be going down to the last possession.
Exactly. I look at this game like this. Chiefs are 27th DVOA versus the run, and we've seen that ever since Joe Brady has taken over. Cooks has become the focal point of the offense. 17 carries to 12 carries, 62 yards a game to 74 yards a game. Can the Bills establish the run game, lean on the run game, and limit what the Chiefs can do offensively? Because I know the Chiefs have struggled on offense, but the Bills are insanely banged up on the defensive side. Kelsey is 78.25 yards per game against the tight end, 6 for 20. The Bills are. Kelsey at 6 for 83 last game. Bills are only 14th DVOA defending the tight end. Douglas is back. Douglas shadows Rice. Bracket coverage Kelsey, force the other guys to beat you. But then that could open stuff up for Pacheco, because the Bills do struggle against the run. So to me, it just comes down to whoever runs the ball more. And I'm going to lean the Bills here. I've loved what I've seen from this offense ever since Brady has taken over. They stopped relying on the passing game. Allen's rushing attempts have gone down. He is still looking to make plays with his feet. And they've learned, let's shorten the game. Let's lean on James Cook. We have one of the better offensive line coaches in the league. Let's use his own blocking scheme. Chiefs offense isn't right. They're just not clicking. And that's really because there's no Eric Bieniemy. Nagy's there, and since he's taken over the offense, this offense just doesn't look right. Offensive line can be rushed on. And I think the Bills' offensive line is going to be able to limit Chris Jones by the threat of the run game. So I'm on the Bills here, minus the 2.5.
God, such a cool game on paper here. And for me, Eric, the ways I'm attacking this game at this number, that's just what's so important about playing this game is the number. Where are you getting it? 2.5, 3, right in that range. At less than 3, I don't know if I'd want to play the Chiefs, but as soon as it would get to 3 or anything above 3, I would absolutely be on the Chiefs. It's just that tight of a game. You hit on some of the real matchup concerns I would have if I was someone backing the Chiefs. Stopping the run. Is that something they'll be able to do? Then on the flip side, how much are those injuries in the middle of the defense going to really impact Buffalo? Same sort of thing, right? We saw Buffalo earlier in the year. They had that Miami game where they beat the crap out of Miami. And then all their guys on the defensive side got hurt. And for the next 3 or 4 weeks, that was when Buffalo went in that tailspin because they were missing all that depth in the middle of their defense. Then what they did is they brought in Rasul, and they brought in a couple others that they made a few moves, and they were able to shore up the defense a little bit. A couple guys got healthier, and they were stronger towards the end of the season. But then last week, again, against Miami, they lost a lot of their real defensive contributors down the stretch. So storylines, fun rivalry with these two teams, 2 of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. If you honestly wanted to say that these were your personal number ones, I don't think anyone would talk you off of it. Honestly, with what these guys could do, Allen gets some crap because he turns the ball over a lot. But I think on the flip side, I don't think the people that want to give him crap for the turnovers, I don't think they take into account how many times he runs out of a sack. Right? Something just like that,
plays. And when you're someone like that who throws the ball downfield, I mean, you're naturally going to have more turnovers. And the thing is if you win, no one cares.
Yeah, and it's a high variance thing, and it's something where even a lot of the times it's 3rd down or it's on 4th, and he's doing arm punts too. He's taking, like you said, he's taking a big shot. It doesn't necessarily impact them quite as much. And then you have Mahomes with what he's done. These two guys are incredible. And it's fun seeing them so good and still under the age of 30 right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole new era, if you will, of quarterbacks and everything going on. So it's great to see because remember a couple years ago, everyone was worried, are we going to have when Manning and Brady and everyone retired, are we going to have that? Who's going to be the next great quarterbacks? And it seems to me like we're here. We've reached it now where we've had these good quarterbacks and everything. So it's kind of good to see.
I think the 2 guys we saw in the playoffs this year too, the 2 young guys, I don't think they're fluky. Are they going to – every year isn't going to necessarily be as incredible as the last, but I think Stroud and Love are both serious guys. I think there was enough sample size for them throughout the year, watching them and the plays they made where they're going to be very good moving forward. And we know about these 2 guys. We know about Lamar. And then you have guys like Goff and Baker who have incredible pedigree and incredible prospect, but for whatever reason, it just didn't work the first time through with the relationship they were in. But damn, it's worked very well for Goff the second time. And look for Baker now on the 4th one through. He's made it as far as he ever had into the playoffs. I'm going to go rushing props for both, Eric. So for Parlay Play, remember, folks, parlayplay.io. That's the website. Use the promo code NFL Betting Blitz. And you can see it right there, popping up on the screen. When you make your wagers, you can parlay props together and I put together 4 of them for today, Eric. I put one for each team, $25 play. I've got Mike Evans over 74.5 receiving yards. Hutchinson, more than 4 combined tackles, solo and assisted. I've got Josh Allen over 43.5 rushing yards. Patrick Mahomes over 27.5 rushing yards. I bet the Mahomes one individually earlier in the week also. I think you're going to see him. If this were me and I were Patrick Mahomes at this point in his career, he's great. And he's looking at this season and this team individually. It's different than all the other ones before. And for him, I would look at this game and say, I need to run the ball a little bit more, pick up a few extra first downs, get us a couple extra free plays, because my offense isn't as efficient as it used to be. We're not that big quick strike offense like we were in the past years. We need extra plays. We need extra bites at the apple. On a 3rd and 5, let me pick up the first down and get us 2 or 3 more. I think we're going to see that from him. I don't think he trusts a whole ton of the guys on this team right now. I think he trusts Kelsey, and I think he trusts Rice. And I think that's about it. And so I'm expecting Mahomes to have 50, 60 yards rushing today and like 8 to 10 carries. And I don't think anyone would be surprised to see Allen have even more than that, where he's been running the hell out of the ball as of late. So my parlay for those 4, $25, get me back $250. Nothing wrong with that, Eric.
Let's get it, dude. I like that one a lot. I just did Laporta and Mike Evans. I did the rushing yards over.
Okay. Conference championships, man. Now that we got all the gambling and the handicapping stuff out of the way, what are you nervous as a fan? What are you feeling like right now? Talk to us from inside the mind of a Detroit Lions fan who's lived through the last 40 years of struggles.
I'm ready for letdown. Like
I thought you were. I thought you were.
Yeah. Like
I thought you were.
Yeah, I'm scared they're gonna lose this game.
It's like it feels too good to be true right now, the way it looks on paper, where it's like, no way, we caught the Bucs, and even San Francisco didn't look that great next week. Like, you don't want to think, but you already start thinking, damn, like we could go in there and play pretty. You just want to, okay, let me stay grounded. Let's watch the first quarter, the first drive, and let's hope that goes well.
Yeah, and that's just hope Campbell doesn't get idiotic with his play calls. Hope they stays with the script. Hope Evans doesn't go off. Hope there's no injury to St. Brown. I mean, there's a million things that can go off script here, but you just kind of keep the course and kind of hope. Luckily, I'm supposed to stay off my feet for a couple more days, so I'm not going to be able to pace.
Yeah, that's good.
I think last game I had like 20,000 steps around my place. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Hopefully they can piece together a win and not look like a bunch of idiots out there and get the job done.
Good luck, man. There's so few things like that feeling of being a fan and being so invested in a team and just living and dying with the bumps back and forth. You can't replicate that. Even betting big wins and bad beats and stuff. We all love winning a lot of money, but there's something different between what you're experiencing, the stuff that you experienced when you were watching with your dad, right, years ago, and the stuff with your family, or you start remembering these things. And even for me, when a few years ago, when the Lakers and Dodgers both won in the pandemic year, that was just after Milo was born. So, I'll always remember, I've got some pictures of, he was just a baby not long after that, and we had just won. And I remembered where I was when the last time the Lakers won, before that, when you're watching at my apartment with my buddies, and my roommates, and before that with my dad. And it's a cool spot to be in. You can't replicate the feeling that you're going to have right now.
I mean, the thing is like when you look at, granted, I'm kind of like a de facto Bucks fan just because I live in the Chicagoland area now and I go up to a lot of their games. So, them winning it was absolutely phenomenal, but it didn't really feel like my quote unquote, like
your team,
like
not as much
like my team. Just kind of
the that's exactly for me, like the Rams, right? Like for the Rams, like I love the Rams. I never had a football team that I rooted for, and I always want the Rams to win. But last week, I went to sleep fine when the Rams lost to the Lions. Like it didn't impact me the way it does when the freaking Lakers lose to the Nets the other night. I was so furious about that game. It's the same sort of thing for you.
And I mean, like, I'll be honest, like the Tigers had that run from 2011 to 2013
with Verlander. Yeah.
With Verlander and crew. And then my Pistons, had that run where that 2-year run in 2003 where they won it, and then 2004 where they lost it in Game 7 to the Spurs.
And since then, they were bad.
Detroit, this is the closest thing Detroit has to anything. I mean, the Red Wings are doing some stuff this year. They'll be in the playoffs. But
they went from being really good to being really bad for a few years too. Yeah. The Red Wings. And so between the Red Wings and the Tigers and the Pistons and the Lions all sort of at the same time, it is awesome. And you know what? Right now you're feeling palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on a sweater already. We get a little Eminem rocking out there on the 8 Mile. Good luck today, buddy, man. I'll be rocking and rolling and rooting for those Lions for you. Let's do this, Jared Goff, and let's do it, Dan Campbell. All of you out there, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Crazy that we only have 3 more football games to discuss.
Yep.
The 2 next week, and then the Super Bowl coming up in a few weeks. We'll be here with you, getting you all set up, and then Eric and I will transition the conversation on over to some basketball, to some NBA. We'll talk some college leading up into March Madness too, get you set up for brackets and everything. The grind never stops. Maybe we take like a week off or so in between some things and shift our focus, but always grinding. Eric, buddy, hit your plays, and let's go Lions.
Let's cash some tickets, man. Best of luck.
Everyone have a nice Sunday. We'll be back talking to you next week for conference championship games on NFL Betting Blitz.